Hello. You know, I don't think a lot of people really understand just how vital proofreading can be for a story. Before you publish a story, be that in a professional medium or an amateur medium, a very important step that you want to take is proofreading. This is a quality check. This is to make sure there are no mistakes, or as little as you can manage. One or two might slip by, but as long as you catch the majority of them, that's what's important. For extra quality control, you would have someone else proofread after you. A fresh pair of eyes looking over something is always going to catch at least one thing that you missed, and they can offer a different perspective, perhaps something you didn't think about. Bowie, this is a video about a video game. What are you doing? Well, as it happens, this step also exists in game development, and that would be in the form of playtesting. You need playtesters to look over your game and come back to you with things that they've found so that you can adjust any errors that there might have been, so you can guarantee the players will have the intended experience. Whether you're a professional AAA studio or an indie developer, just might be a good idea to get people to play your game before you release it. There is a reason for that. So, on the subject of playtesting and experiences, there's a fun little game that I would like to cut open. You might have heard of it before. It's called Postshift 2. Now, as I said in the video before this game was known for being extremely hard, so hard that a particular streamer had a rough time getting through night 1 and ultimately could not do it. And since then, there have been a few videos of people playing or attempting to play through the game. And the idea of a really hard game is not a foreign concept to me, and whenever I hear about someone complaining that a game is hard, my first thought is the meme answer, get good scrub, because the game should not adjust to you. You need to adjust to the game. If the game is hard, then get better at it. The entire reason why we have hard games or even hard difficulties in games is to challenge yourself and get better. However, I will refrain from this mindset because RJack did say that he did not mean for the game to be as hard as it supposedly was. And we'll talk about that. Postshift 2 is an extremely interesting study and one that I think a lot of upcoming developers can learn from. If you don't know, this game was developed using the ClickTeam engine, the same engine that was used to make the mainline Five Nights at Freddy's games up until Security Breach. This game is beautiful. The design of the characters are impressive. The use of lighting and shadows and panels and sounds I think are top tier. It is a pretty good looking game in my personal opinion, especially considering this was made by one person and it's completely free. But there's just one little thing that tends to get in the way of people enjoying the game. This game has a lot of mechanics and a lot of information coming at you. We'll get into detail about this stuff, and before anyone asks, yes, we will be talking about this story. Come on, it's me, of course we're looking at story. Now, let's get stuck in. And you know what? Fuck it. Let's have some fun. Let's look at the story first. We'll look at the overarching story first, and then take a look at the details from the game. And for the story to make sense, we just need a little bit of context from the first game. Because it's almost like this is the second game, so the two are connected. That's crazy. So our evil corporation in this story is, this toy company, taking the place of Fazbear Entertainment. In Postshift 1, the protagonist, Thomas, worked as a night guard and was understandably traumatized from the animatronics trying to kill him. But he wanted to prove that something was wrong with the robots and wanted to stop Afton, their creator, from building more. He tried to get his friends, including our character in Postshift 2, to help him, but no one believed him until he eventually disappeared. He was caught by Afton, who then used his body and heart as parts to build Revenant Bonnie and bring it to life as punishment for digging and trying to stop him. This brings us to Postshift 2, where our character, Sarah Wilkinson, is trying to figure out what happened to Thomas and gets a job at this toy company to work at the location you see in nights 1 through 3. She used this to her advantage to try and find Thomas. However, the job wasn't exactly easy, with numerous employees getting injured and sometimes killed by Afton's new project, the Minotaurs, which he started creating after he made Subjects 1 through 5, recreated versions of the animatronics from Post-Shift 1. Typically being held in stasis while researchers gathered information on them, Minotaurs are meant to be more easily controlled by way of a virtual environment created for each one. These environments would be where you could implant happy memories in order to keep them stable and not break out of their stasis pods. However, after this didn't go as planned and a few people started getting injured, Afton had all workers sign a liability waiver so he couldn't be held liable for injury or death. Coming back to Sarah, at some point during her time there, she got access to an underground sector of the warehouse where she discovered sentient animatronic characters being stored there. As soon as she saw this, she realized that Thomas was telling the truth and tried to go to the police. However, they didn't believe her, with the chief officer stating technology for such things to exist is crazy at best, and believed that there are simply poor working conditions at the warehouse considering the number of injuries and deaths that were reported. Sometime later, an interview team attempted to interview Revenant Bonnie, referred to as One Eye. On the fourth interview, One Eye attacked the workers, killing them all, including Sarah, and escaped. Sarah was brought back to life by crafted Bonnie by way of Afton style throwing her soul into an endoskeleton, powered by the system, who then questioned her about what she remembered from the beginning. After she was able to tell him the events of the first 2 nights of her employment, it became clear that she knew far too much. And being close to achieving their goal, they couldn't let her interfere. So rather than doing the sensible thing and just fucking murking her right then and there, she was removed from the premises as previously requested by One Eye and warned to not return. If she did, then she would be killed. Even though she was already, but she was determined to keep looking and find out what happened. And if there was a chance that Thomas was still alive, she could save him. So she ignored the warning and went back, straight to the lower levels. She got through the miniature containment area and found the research area that Thomas told her about back when he tried to warn everyone. While down there, she met Ballora, who told her that the only way to end this and allow the tormented souls of the possessed animatronics to rest is to destroy the core of the systems, the source of their life. It should go without saying that this game has multiple endings. There's a total of 4: Deteriorated, Good, Resolution, and the Purple Guy. The good ending is you achieving the mentioned task after facing Revenant's End, a fusion of all the Revenant, Remnant, and miniature animatronics that merge together in an effort to stop you. Everyone likes good endings, so we'll go with the good ending to wrap up the story, and then we'll talk about some things and look at the other endings as well. In the good ending, Sarah stabbed Revenant's End. I don't know where she got the knife, effectively destroying the core of the systems and the source of life for the animatronics. However, being a robot herself, this meant sacrificing herself for the greater good. Following a missing persons report, a forensics team was sent to analyze the building. They discovered Sarah's DNA on one of the endoskeletons located within the lower levels of the building. The company was very quickly shut down after being exposed. As for Thomas, we are told through expository dialogue that One Eye's only source of life is the weird heart that's inside him. And since we know that Thomas was killed and used to build Bonnie, we know it's Thomas's heart. And since Revenant's End was an amalgamation of all of them, Thomas's heart also merged with them. It is a thematic and bittersweet ending. You essentially have to kill Thomas in order to put an end to it. Or at least I think that's the case. Just like Garden of Banban, I had to take liberties and make huge assumptions. There are things that I just do not know. Like, I have no idea if we are in fact Sarah, or if she was down there for that interview thing. And don't worry, we'll talk about that. The only reason why I'm thinking that we could be this chick is because she's the only name we get in the entire game. Why give us a name of a particular person if your character is some nobody who also happened to work there? Us not being her made less sense than us being her, so I went with it. And because of how this story is handled, I actually, quite seriously, originally had a theory written in here that Thomas's heart was this source of life for all of the animatronics. Because this is oddly specific wording for something that only applies to Revenant Bonnie. Why call attention to this and say it in this way if it doesn't go anywhere? And spoilers, it doesn't go anywhere. And let me tell you, this fucking systems shit has fucking haunted me the entire damn time I spent trying to piece this story together. At no fucking point are you ever told exactly what these systems are. At the beginning of the game, we are told that One Eye is kept alive because of his heart. Throughout part A, we're just telling this fucking rabbit about how high we rate our employment out of 10 and dealing with the animatronics that show up. No mention of any system thing keeping them alive, or even hinting at the fact that they are alive. At this point in the game, the only ones that we know that for sure are quote-unquote alive is this rabbit and Revenant Bonnie and us. Towards the end of part A, he mentions that they're getting close to their goal. We don't know what that is. We never find out what their fucking goal was. In part B, we show up in this containment area and stare at this fucker for a bit while also dealing with miniature and remnant things. Not revenant, remnant. What's the difference? I don't fucking know. But anyway, you just deal with these things and maintain the virtual simulations that you learned about. Still no mention of any systems. Night 5, it's literally just post-shift 1 with new skins for the animatronics. Still aren't given any indications that any system is what is keeping these things alive. Still don't know what their goal is supposed to be. And then you run into Ballora in her miniaturinas, who, as long as you don't fuck up when going through Night 4, you never see. Ever. Ballora is one of the miniature animatronics that you monitor with the virtual environment screen. If you don't tend to her simulation in a good amount of time, then she will spawn. But if you play through Night 4 like I did, which I highly recommend that you do, because I had absolutely no trouble and I was able to get through all the simulations in time, then you'll just never see her until after Night 5. So this cutscene doesn't make any sense. She's talking to you like you've seen her before. I have not. It even says in the log info for the 6th night, do not let the systems prevail. Show them that there is no salvation. What systems? There has been, quite seriously, no mention of any systems at any point throughout the entirety of the game until you run into Ballora, who sounds fucking insane. Because she brings up a whole bunch of stuff that isn't even fucking hinted at any point in the game. We're just pulling a plot point out of nowhere. Are these systems supposed to be just like normal computer systems, and since they all merged into Revenant's End, they just happened to all be there when we stabbed him, and that did it? If the systems are what keeps them alive, and we stab it, why do we die? We shouldn't be tied to them because we're different. Why aren't Golden Freddy and this fucker dead? They're alive. What makes them different? I don't fucking know. Did William Afton fucking split up Thomas's heart like the goddamn Horcruxes and stick a piece in every animatronic so that they'll come to life, and when they formed Revenant's End and merged the heart pieces together so a little stabby stab will kill it? I don't fucking know. All I know is that you stabbed this fucker and almost everything dies. I say almost because Golden Freddy and this fucker are still fine. And I have no goddamn clue what that means. We have no idea who these two are supposed to be or how important they are to the story, what their purpose is. In the good ending, Golden Freddy is moving, when he wasn't moving at any point in the entire game before now. And our character doesn't even acknowledge that, we just ignore it. And there's an implication that he is also sentient with this little cut right at the very end. But he's still alive after beating Revenant's End. So he isn't kept alive by this systems bullshit or One Eye's heart or whatever the fuck. So why the fuck is this thing still moving? And who the fuck are you? This thing that appears in both the good and bad endings and brings us back to life, we don't know what this thing is or why it exists. It is painfully clear to me that there are details that I either missed or simply aren't present. And I don't know which one it is. Because I've stared at this fucking game for like 16 hours just trying to figure this one part out. And I still feel like it's possible that I missed something, which is frustrating. I know that there are secrets that I haven't found, and there's lore shit around the house that maybe I'm just not understanding. Though I sincerely doubt it, since these are all the pictures that you can put on the board. You find a blood-stained monitor, because that tells me so much, and you can get a key from the cupboard that needs the Freddy plushie. According to the wiki, it goes to a chest in the bedroom, which I'm convinced is just not correct because there is no chest anywhere. So I don't fucking know. This is why I prefer traditional storytelling, just a linear fucking story where I don't have to do a goddamn jigsaw puzzle with half the pieces missing in order to figure out what the fuck is going on. I don't even know why we die in the good ending, to be perfectly honest with you. Because if we do make the assumption that this systems thing is something that all of the animatronics are connected to, and they're attacking us, who is also an animatronic or at least an endoskeleton, that would imply to me that we are not connected to these systems. I don't know. This is confusing. So, to be charitable, I will assume that Arjak did have something in mind and just had it planned for later. But after all the bullshit that happened, that idea was never realized. So we're just left with an incomplete story. But I am also willing to believe that it's just me. Because as I mentioned, there are secrets in the game that go towards the good ending, and there's lore stuff in the house that, at least from my view, doesn't seem to go anywhere. In the house you have this investigation table, right? And in the kitchen, there's this locked cupboard, right? Okay, so at the end of each night, you come to this house, and you can find different stuff. For instance, at the end of night 1, you go to this storage box and find this plushie and some parts. But this plushie isn't the plushie you need for the cupboard. And then after nights 2 and 3, you'll find some pictures. But these aren't the pictures that you put on the corkboard at the investigation table. No, you need to find some USBs during nights as well as the Freddy plushie that you need. They all spawn in the souvenirs area at different points in the nights. So what the fuck is the point of finding the stuff in the house if they don't get added to the investigation table? Are they not part of the investigation? What about the parts that you find in the storage box? What are those for? As I said, you get a key from the locked cupboard, and I feel like this warrants repeating. According to the wiki, it goes to a chest in the bedroom. This is my chance to bitch about the wiki. There is no fucking chest in the goddamn bedroom. There's just this storage box, which doesn't open once you get the spare parts from it. Also, you know what else the wiki says? This is talking about the living room, the place where you put the pictures from the USB. The living room, aka the investigation area, is where you find out the truth and move to the kitchen. You can also place photos to learn the truth behind you friend's fate. Want to know what your character says when we place the pictures? I managed to print these photos from the USBs scattered on the table nearby the temporary aisle. Some of these are copies that were already placed on the wall nearby. Even the tearing is the same as mine. How is that possible? It looks like... Fucking hell, this toy company has an ulterior motive beyond selling and distributing toys and electronics. These look like the animatronics, the ones from the 90s. Someone rebuilt them. Goddamn semicolon. Or maybe they rebuilt themselves. If that's you learning the truth behind you friend's fate, then I was born in Zimbabwe. You get hints to things, but you don't learn anything related to what happened to Thomas. Fucking wikis. Anyway, want to hear about the other endings? The deteriorated ending, the default ending that you get if you just don't do any secret stuff at all, is at the end of night 6, you go to your old home, this house, and an animatronic that you never fucking met before, ever, just starts talking a whole bunch of cryptic shit that does not make any sense whatsoever. Because we have no context for any of this. Then One Eye is just here now, and then your screen goes red, so it can be implied that you just fucking die. This is called the deteriorated ending. I don't know what that means. As I said, you're a robot once you're brought back to life. So, why do you die? Next is the resolution ending. That's how you learn about the company getting exposed and how you learn about Sarah. And lastly is the purple guy ending, which is where you meet with William Afton, who basically marvels at how you were the perfect merging of soul and robot, reveals that Thomas was part of One Eye, and pieces out. Then some plushies show up and say some shit that honestly doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and they peace out too. And yeah, that's it. So, if you haven't noticed, we've got some problems here. And we already went over a fair few, but let's keep going. I want to talk about this fucking interview first. So we open with two unidentified individuals from the toy company interviewing Revenant Bonnie, referred to as One Eye. This is apparently day 4, so they've talked to this thing 3 times before. Unprompted, One Eye says, "When I find a way out of this forbidden chamber, I'll tear you apart limb from limb. And when they find out, you're all in for a treat. It will be just like in the old days, Thomas." So right away, we've got some questions, right? Who's they? What are they finding out? That you escaped and killed people? What's going on? Also, I feel like forbidden is not the correct word to use here. If the chamber was forbidden, that would mean that One Eye isn't allowed in it, so he wouldn't be there. Remember, words are important. Words have meanings. So, naturally, the two individuals talking to One Eye do what any of us would do when a robot with some kind of consciousness very openly says that it is going to kill us. A robot that is not restrained in any apparent way, I will point out, and that is not take the threat seriously in any way and proceed to shock the shit out of it. Then they say he has a chance of being free, whatever that means, but he needs to stop threatening them. Otherwise, they'll take the other eye out. First of all, no, just turn it off. It's a fucking robot. How about disabling it in a way that will actually keep it from killing you? If you interviewed this thing 3 times already, and it very clearly already made threats to kill everyone since you took the first eye, that should be a clue that you need to do something a bit more substantial than removing some eyeballs. One Eye says, "Bro, you think I care about losing an eye? I'll just put myself back together." And they antagonize it even more by saying, "Oh yeah? Well, we got your other eye. Nya, 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 nya." And then we're told through expository dialogue that One Eye's only source of life is some kind of weird heart he's got. And then they just square up with it and say like, "You really think we can't just take it down? Robot that isn't restrained in any way?" And in a completely shocking turn of events that absolutely no one saw coming, One Eye charges at them and they more than likely die. Which begs the question, what the fuck was the goal of this interview? They literally sat the guy in a room and said, "Fuck you, come at me, bro." Like, no, seriously, what was the point? And on top of that, the thing that gets me is there's this line here talking about how One Eye is close to being free.
Now, One Eye, you have a chance of being free, but I recommend you stop messing around.
Firstly, what the fuck does that mean? Secondly, alright, evil company looking to do shady shit with these robots. I got that. They're gonna do things that logical people probably wouldn't advise. So, alright, we're running some underground bullshit where we let these things into the wild. Maybe don't pick the one that's constantly saying is going to kill us all. That sounds like something that you should not release because it will fucking kill you. I'm just saying. Alright, let's look at some other issues. On the log screen of night 3, it says, it is on this night that you must make a choice. And night 4 says, after making a tough choice. Spoiler, we don't make any choice of any kind. You play the game as you normally would. This minigame is bullshit. And then you fuck around at the house. And that's it. At no point do you make a choice about anything. So what's the point of telling us that we have a choice to make if we don't actually make a fucking choice? Do you see the issue? I saved this bit for the end because I don't want to spend too much time on it because that would be mean. But I have to bring this up because it ties into our overarching theme of proofreading and playtesting. There is a really odd number of grammatical issues in this game. For instance, we have the wrong "you're" here in the interview, and the second I saw this, I started paying more attention to everything else. Because if this is wrong, how much you want to bet something else is wrong? But I can say I don't think I was prepared for exactly how many mistakes I actually found. I was honestly a little floored. Starting to get settled in on your new placement should be settled into your new placement. Chances of finding more information should be chance to find more information. We have get rid of with remnant Foxy via the drone. In order to deal with Foxy, you must keep in mind a few things. Keep a few things in mind. Cleaning and sanitary, I think you mean sanitation. Some of these are things that are just common mistakes that are made and can be caught by proofreading and or playtesting. But some of these others, like the forbidden chamber thing, just using the wrong word for things, that's stuff that I would expect from someone who has English as a second language. But Arjack is British. English should be his native language. However, be wary that after a while, planting plushies at his stage will become ineffective and useless as Bonnie will learn and speak of the plushie. So this one isn't a grammatical issue, but it's got some other things. So ineffective and useless is redundant. You really only need one of those. And then learn and speak of the plushie? I feel like that's not written correctly. I can't even guess at what that's supposed to mean. Alright, I'm done being the grammar police. Last thing I want to mention, I do like the idea for this plot, right? You're a friend looking for a missing friend and you're finding out that some shady shit is happening and oh shit, he was actually telling the truth. This is bad. But this game has a bit of a similar problem as like The Forest. The narrative and the gameplay just do not match up. You're trying to find out what happened to Thomas in the narrative, but in the gameplay, you need to survive a certain number of hours in these individual places. If you're looking for a missing friend or looking for clues about what happened to said missing friend, why does that get sidelined during the levels? Why is that not our main goal during those levels? Here's what I mean. Here we are in the research area, the place that Thomas told us about when he was trying to warn everyone, right? And rather than looking around the individual stages trying to look for things that may mean that Thomas was in fact here, we have to play Guess the Song with Freddy. What I mean is the gameplay that I would expect to match the narrative would be something like this. You're in this area and you're looking around for evidence and clues related to Thomas's disappearance, because that's supposedly our character's main goal. So let's say we go over to Freddy's stage and we're looking for like a select number of things, right? And while we're in there, Freddy has a chance of activating and entering an attack stage. That would make more sense to me rather than, oh hey, this is a place that Thomas told me about. Let me just stand here for about 6 hours and hope I don't die. Also, I have to complete orders for some reason. I don't know if I'm explaining this well, but the narrative and the gameplay do not match up too well. So to wrap up this section, I want to say that I like the story, but I can't because I'm not 100% on what the story is from beginning to end, and that's kind of the biggest thing for me. I have to know what the narrative is for me to enjoy it, right? When there are details that just aren't clear, plot elements that are seemingly pulled from left field, plot elements that are not utilized, characters that should be explained but aren't, endings that aren't entirely clear, and some not very good dialogue writing to top it all off, I hesitate to call it a good story. I like the idea. I like the premise. I like that we are very clearly trying, but I can't call it good. One of the reasons why I like Amnesia and Soma so much is because the story in both of those games is very straightforward, very easy to follow. Same with Frambo, Half-Life, Firewatch if anyone remembers that game, Okami, Resident Evil 4, Red Dead 2, even Hitman. I want to like this, but it has confused the hell out of me. Alright, I'm done with the story, so we can look at the other stuff now. It's going to be really difficult for me to sort of piece together why certain things were done, because ordinarily I would just ask, right? However, because of circumstances that we won't talk about here right now, I can't do that. I can't contact Arjak. So the best way for me to get an idea of why certain things were done is to look at the predecessor to this game, Postshift 1. The tutorial stuff is getting its own section because there's a lot to discuss with this. Everyone who knows, if you remember, one of the big things that got people talking was the tutorial stuff. And I think I figured out the intention behind it. Kind of. You see, in Postshift 1, Arjak had a fantastic idea. He has a tutorial night. You can go to all 4 stages, he straight up tells you what is going to happen at that stage and what to do about it, and he lets you play with the controls. At Freddy's stage, he lets you hear which option is which piece of music so that you know what to pick when you hear it. And with it being a separate night, people won't think that you're just throwing information at them and they'll never be able to get that information back because the tutorial night is still there. And they know it's a tutorial night, so there might be a lot to kind of learn if there's a whole night dedicated to learning the game outside of the main game. And they get to learn at their own pace and not feel rushed. Though I will say that one thing he does not tell you is that you need to do these tasks throughout the night, and while you're in the panel, you start gaining attention. Also, the game switches on you. But we're not reviewing that game, we're reviewing this game. Anyway, very good idea, love to see it, so now we come over to Postshift 2. Very stylized menu, by the way, but we see here that we have an option to toggle the tutorials on and off, and we see a note at the bottom saying the animatronics will remain inactive until you are ready. So my guess is that what he was going for was kinda integrating the tutorial night and the main nights, so you could take your time, learn the stuff, make sure you understand how to get through everything, and then you play. It's a lot of information. It is a lot of information, but you are given plenty of time to understand it before you start playing. Now before we continue, there's something I need to do. There is a problem with Postshift 2's tutorials. I know, shocking. But the problems in Part A and the problems in Part B are different. So for the sake of organization, I'm going to talk about Part A's tutorials first. So there is a lot of information, but as long as you read everything and retain the information, you'll be fine for the most part. Here's the thing. Part of the problem is something that really needs to be addressed. People just don't fucking read, which is not the game's fault. Could the tutorials be shortened down? Maybe. You know what? I'll be charitable and say yes. But here's the thing. Long or short, you still need to read the words. If you don't read the words, that's your own fucking fault. A lot of the difficulty in pretty much any game stems from understanding the mechanics. Once you understand what to do, the game becomes easier. This game tells you almost everything you need to know and what to do for the most part, and it gives you as much time as you need to make sure you understand everything. Kinda. There's an asterisk here, which we'll talk about later. It's on you to take the time to read the fucking words so you can succeed. If you don't do that, then there is literally no one to blame other than yourself. So I'm on two sides of this. On one hand, I think that if you look at a tutorial like this and you say, ugh, I don't want to read, I'm playing a game, not reading a book, and then you complain about not knowing what to do because you didn't read what to do, that's your own fucking fault. And on the other hand, there is a fair bit of information that we don't need to know for the first night because it's not relevant, like the souvenir room, which does not come into play until night 2. Also, I feel like there could have been better organization. For the first night, we have miniature Freddy, Foxy, and Revenant Freddy. I think I personally would have had night 1 be miniature, Freddy, Foxy, and Baby, kind of keep them grouped together. Then for night 2, have the Remnant animatronics, and then night 3, the Revenant animatronics. That makes a little more sense to me. Anyway, there's information that we just don't need to know that doesn't have to be mentioned in night 1. I'm okay with the game mentioning that Chica has something to do with this room, but you don't need to worry about it until night 2. That's a good way of giving a little hint to the player without overwhelming them. What I'm not okay with is, like in this panel, we have everything available to us and explained to us in night 1. I probably would have only kept the night 1 relevant stuff in this panel for night 1. That would lessen the player's confusion because there's not as much to remember. And then for night 2, you add the night 2 relevant stuff to the panel, and so on and so on. There's a lot of mechanics. It seems very clear to me that Arjak wanted more for the player to do, more things for the player to pay attention to. And in an odd way, he kind of solves my main issue with the main Five Nights at Freddy's games 1 through 4, at least with part A here. Part A is us recalling our first 3 nights working at this place while we're still human. There's a task I need to complete in order to leave, so I feel like I'm doing a job. I am actively part of the environment. I have a purpose beyond just existing here. I need to do different things for the different animatronics, so it's something new, it's something fresh, and I'm not just looking left and right and clicking lights and doors the whole time. So I can see why he didn't have the tutorial as a separate night like his last game, because he wanted more here than just the 4 stages with the 4 animatronics and the 4 mechanics. I understand the intent. Or at least I think I do, since I can't confirm it, but I think I understand it. And because I understand it, it very quickly goes from the hardest fan game to just a difficult fan game. And I don't think that's a problem. When I look at these fan games, something that I like to see is something new. Something that isn't just your standard FNAF, locked in an office, looking at cameras, seen it 100 times kind of formula. I want to see creativity. Something like Juniors, or Flumpties 2, or Candies 3, or Sinister Turmoil, or Joy of Creation. All of these use different ideas. All of these are something new. And this game is no different. This game is filled with different ideas, filled with creativity. It tries new things with new mechanics, and it's challenging. Why would I complain about that? It has everything that I ask for. Because keep in mind, a good portion of the more iconic FNAF fan games out there that are known by the masses are games that are basically FNAF, but it's at McDonald's, or FNAF, but it's Mario, or FNAF, but it's cats with burgers, or FNAF, but it's Disney, or FNAF, but we never finish it. That was mean, I'm sorry. And some of these fan games have a pretty major issue, and that is, to be quite frank, poorly designed mechanics, where you can spend most of the game either just not playing, or not playing as intended. So if I need to read pages of tutorials to get original and creative mechanics, and the dev couldn't figure out a better way to get that information across to the player, then fuck it, looks like I'm reading. So speaking of reading the tutorials, this is something that kind of illustrates what I'm talking about. I like Chicken Ninja, but
In the info card for the promotional area, we are told that if Revenant Freddy appears to the left, he is going to attack us. But the only time we are told when and where we should use the mobile drone is when we open up the maintenance panel and click on the drone itself. And even when we do, the information on where and who we use it on is like one sentence long. So needless to say, this took a really long time to figure out, and the best thing about all of this is, he's the easiest animatronic to deal with in this night.
Here's the thing. It's an info card. As I said, you have all the time in the world to look at it and understand it while it's up. The night doesn't start until you hide that info card. You need to read it, especially since you said in your intro to your challenge here that the only thing you have to go on per your rules is what's given to you in the game. The game gives you a lot, and it sounds like you didn't take the time to read everything. That is made clear by your comment about not knowing about Miniature Foxy.
From here, we can move forward into this section of the aisle where we can look to the right through a gap in the shelves for any animatronics that are trying to eat me. And this place is very important, and it would really suck if I had no idea this existed for half the time I was playing.
In your current view, you can either click the button at the top to view the promotional area, or alternatively, shift your view right to view the blind spot next to you. You will likely need to check the right view on a frequent basis for Miniature Foxy. In order to use the voice and sentence constructor in your monitor, you must be near him. Miniature Foxy can also appear in the promotional area too. He will likely switch between the two areas each time he becomes active.
The night doesn't end. We have to do another thing. The second thing we have to do is complete 3 tasks with our half-less repair drone using our employee maintenance monitor or EMM. This requirement really shows the main problem with this game. The developer doesn't tell you anything. First off, to even open the monitor in the first place, we're only told how to do so in this sentence in this little info card that only appears in the tutorial for this room. So if you just happen to skip this sentence, you're gonna miss out on all this that shows up in the EMM. And that's not even the worst part. When you open up the actual EMM, you are barely even told that you need to use the repair drone. The only time the game mentions this super vital piece of information is when you open up the EMM and click on the tab for the half-less repair drone. And once you are there, there is a small little info box in the corner that tells you that you need to do this to complete the night.
As part of your job, you will need to perform various repairs to your drones. We refer to them here at this toy company as the half-less. Select the currently highlighted half-less part. The part that requires repairing will change in your later shifts. You won't be able to finish your work until these much-needed repairs to your drones have been made. You can view our repair drone's camera and extra info as soon as you've started your shift. Important! Souvenirs can also be found in this area. They can be useful for when you are back home. Hover your mouse to the left corner and click of your screen at any time to view the monitor.
But that's because, again, the game just doesn't tell you. It only tells you Miniature Foxy can appear there in one sentence in this entire tutorial.
So it does tell you, you just didn't read.
How do we actually 100% complete this game? Because much like every other aspect of this game, nothing makes sense, and they don't tell us how to do it.
Maybe turn the tutorials back on. So, my suggestion is maybe don't skip the fucking information and read it, since your challenge kinda depends on you reading it. It's like complaining about an open book test being too hard because you refuse to open the fucking book. And I understand that I'm playing the post-patch version and he was playing the pre-patch version, but I did download the pre-patch version. The tutorial stayed the same. So the information that he's seeing and the information that I'm seeing is the exact same. I'm not here to flame One Chicken Ninja too hard, I just needed to get that out there because I think that was a pretty core part of some of the issues. Now, in fairness to Chicken Ninja, let's talk about that asterisk I mentioned. As I said multiple times now, there's a lot of information. However, every now and then there are things that are left out. Let's take Night 2 as an example. For Night 2, the tutorials are mostly telling us about Revenant Bonnie and how he works, telling us all the locations where we can possibly find him. So as I said, the game is straight up telling us almost everything. Damn near eliminating the amount of time you'd run around like a headless chicken trying to look for him, even though the map really isn't that big. Here's the thing. He can also appear in the souvenirs area, but the tutorials do not tell you this. To a point, I kind of understand this because you still need to leave something for players to figure out for themselves, but at the same time, if you're going to tell players what 95% of the full mechanic is, you should probably just tell them the full thing. Same with Miniature Baby. In order to deal with her, you need to lock a positive memory to get rid of her, but you don't know which memories are positive and which are negative. You can kind of pick up on which ones are the positive ones after you look at them, but I also feel like you could have dropped a hint about which ones are the positive memories. Now we get to talk about part B. Night 4 is where Chicken Ninja and I disagree. He says the tutorials in this night are bad. I didn't have a problem with them. Again, it tells you everything you need to know. It's fine. No. Night 5 is where we start having issues. So up to this point, we've gotten some pretty detailed guides, right? Basically told us everything we needed to know, with the exception of Revenant Bonnie, where it didn't tell us that he can spawn in that one area. Beyond that, it did fine. Well, here, it tells us we can open the panel with E, right? Then it gives us a rundown of each category on the right side of the panel and what our options are. That's all fine. Fuck you, Bonnie. But there's one little thing. In order to complete the night, you need to complete Insta orders. So you need to open up your additional panel screen. How do we do that? Well, if you just look here and you know, somewhere so all you do is, yeah, so it looks like we left out some critical fucking information here. You press Q to open the panel. What makes this worse is that in the guide for that additional panel, it says you will likely need to use this on a frequent basis throughout the night. We kinda need to know the panel fucking exists for us to do that, bub. Also, no we don't. That's a pretty serious omission. And I'll talk about this more after we talk about Foxy, because he's actually relevant to this particular conversation. If we hop over to Foxy's stage, it honestly feels like someone was having a stroke while handling this part of the tutorials. So, you know what, fuck it. I threw shade at him, but I actually do like him, so let's let Chicken Ninja explain how to deal with Foxy.
To Foxy, and this one is a little bit interesting. Subject to Foxy can actually spawn in two different ways, with each of them having a separate way to get rid of them. The first way he spawns is with his head sticking out of the curtains, and the way we get rid of him is very similar to how we get rid of Subject 1 Freddy. First, we want to listen out for a robotic voice which says one of these four frequencies, either 500 Hz, 440 Hz, 432 Hz, or 100 Hz. And when we hear the robotic voice say one of these frequencies, we move over to Foxy's room and click the corresponding frequency on our mobile control panel. If we did that properly, that's it. But what about the second way he spawns? How do we deal with him then? We again want to listen for the robotic voice, but this time it doesn't say a frequency. This time it tells us to move to Foxy's stage. And once we make it there, we notice that he's not actually sticking his head out of the curtains. So what do? We need to open up our mobile control panel, then open up the additional panel screen, and from there we can click on the cameras. Once we do, a small video feed will appear showing Foxy, and if we can't see his eyes, that's how we know we're in danger. Once we see that his eyes are missing, we need to close both panels and click the button at the bottom of our screen asking us if we want to declare missing Foxy eyes. And of course, this game is super fun and quirky, so it just doesn't tell you about this button. It just tells you that you have to declare his eyes are missing, which, to say the least, had me very puzzled. I yelled a lot.
So knowing that, let's look at what the tutorial screen tells us. This is Foxy's stage. Just like the others, he will progressively become more active. In order to deal with Foxy, you must keep in mind a few things. 1. Listen for the announcement that tells you the Hertz number required to deal with Foxy. 2. If he appears to have no eyes in the camera mode of the panel, That means you will need to declare that his eyes are missing in the camera. 3. You should regularly check your additional monitor panel before pressing a sine wave. 4. If a robotic voice tells you that Foxy is becoming aggressive, you will need to do the steps listed in step 2. Once his eyes have returned, you can proceed to exit the stage and move back to the main area. Right, so if you're reading through this and you don't already know how to get to the additional monitor panel, this sounds insane. Again, you're told to press E to bring up your panel, but it doesn't tell you to press Q to bring up the other panel. So it is entirely possible to not know that the additional panel is a thing, because Foxy is the only animatronic with a mechanic that involves the additional panel. So naturally, none of the other animatronic tutorials mentions the panel at all. So here you are looking at this thing and you see camera mode. I don't think it's out of the question for someone to go, "What fucking camera?" and proceed to be confused and by extension frustrated. And then directly under that, now it mentions the additional panel. This extremely vital mechanic that actually contains the thing that you have to do in order to end the fucking night is not even fucking mentioned at any point in the guide until you come to this stage. Nowhere else, anywhere, does it even mention that the additional panel is a thing. You cannot be blamed for not knowing the panel exists and getting pissed off and frustrated because you can't complete the night. So with that out of the way, let's look at the rest of Foxy's guide here. The way this is written, this is just setting the player up for horrible failure, because this is mixing the two ways he aggros, not even separating them for clarity. Because of the way this is written, it makes it seem like the robotic voice will tell you a number or that he's getting aggressive. And when you show up here, you should check the camera before pressing a number to check his eyes, because he could actually have no eyes, and that's the actual problem. That's not how he works. If he spawns and the voice tells you a number, the eyes thing will not happen. If the voice tells you to go to the stage, that's when you have to check the eyes, and the sine wave is not part of that equation. You know why? Because you don't have a number to select. The tutorials are actively describing something that doesn't happen. It's terrible. So I would have said, 1. Listen for the announcement. If it tells you a Hertz number, come to Foxy's stage and select the number in the sine wave. 2. If the announcement just says, go to the stage and view the camera in the additional monitor. 3. If he appears to have no eyes, you must close out of both panels and select Report No Eyes at the bottom of the screen. I feel like that makes more sense. Chica's section is actually kind of fine. She's extremely easy to deal with, and her tutorials aren't terrible. I'll save my criticism about her segment here for the gameplay section. Bonnie is another issue. Again, I'll let Chicken Ninja explain how he works, because that's important.
Subject 4 Bonnie is basically the exact same as Subject 1 Freddy, but he makes a lot less sense. Again, we're given a sound cue which tells us to move to Bonnie's room, which sounds like this. Once we make it to the room, much like Freddy, there's gonna be a song playing, but this time it's not 4 different songs, it's just 4 different versions of the one song. The normal song that plays sounds like this. And on our mobile control panel, we're given 4 different buttons which relate to the 4 effects that can be added: with drums, without drums, normal pitch, and low pitch. But of course, the game can't just be normal and let us press the button corresponding to the sounds we hear, because that would be too easy. If we hear the song playing without drums, we have to press the button that says with drums. And if we hear the song playing with drums, we have to press the button that says without drums. If the song is playing in a low pitch, then we have to press normal pitch. And finally, if it's playing in a glitched manner, we also have to press normal pitch. So what exactly does low pitch do? Absolutely nothing. It's just there. The reason why Freddy was so easy but this one's more difficult is because in the tutorial for this level, we got to hear Freddy's songs. But during this part, we just have to guess. We don't even get to hear the normal version of the song, so we don't know if it's in low pitch, if it's glitched, or whatever.
Jack, brother, listen, man, sometimes you just gotta make things simple. You know that KISS rule, keep it simple, stupid? That would apply here. You gotta look at it from the player's perspective. If the player is told, if you hear the normal version of Bonnie's song, and you hear that it doesn't have drums, that means you need to select with drums. Would that make sense to them? Would they easily understand that? The answer is no. That doesn't make any sense. If the song doesn't have drums, then the player should select without drums, because there were no drums. What are players going to intuitively gather from looking at this panel? They're probably going to think something along the lines of, if I hear drums, I pick with drums. If I hear no drums, I pick without drums. And if I hear kind of a bassy song, I guess, I would probably pick low pitch or something. And then I would change normal pitch to like high pitch or something. I don't know. But you need to make things simple enough that people can figure them out without the tutorial. And I think that's a real vital part of the issue with these tutorials. They're explaining mechanics that are not intuitive. They're not mechanics that you would figure out just by playing the game normally. Like, if I didn't show you the tutorial and I told you to deal with Revenant Freddy, after looking at this panel for a bit, you'll probably be able to figure out what to do, right? But if I gave you Miniature Freddy, and you know how to deal with him at the cleaning area, and then you saw him at the construction area, would you not assume that you would need to do the same thing that you did in the cleaning area? That's what I mean. So all of this said, I think I know what happened. Let's hop on over to Post Shift 1 again really quick. Do you notice anything? Anything seem strangely familiar here? Yeah, as I said before, Night 5 is literally just Night 1 of Post Shift 1. Layout and everything. There's a narrative reason for why this occurs in Post Shift 2, so I'm fine with it. But do you notice anything on the screen here? The keen-eyed among you probably noticed in the lower right-hand corner that right at the bottom, it says press Q to bring up static control panel. Well, let's do that, and oh, what have we here? It looks like we have some tasks. You could almost say Insta orders. I think what happened was Arjack may have assumed people played Post Shift 1 and just remembered that another panel is bound to the Q key. You can't do that when developing a sequel. And now that brings us to the one that I'm sure a lot of people recognize. Night 6. Why do people recognize this? Because the tutorial that Arjack made is so long, he could not put it in the night itself. It warranted its own standalone screen with pages. But why, Bowie? Why is it so long? Well, dear viewer, that's because we are using damn near every animatronic that we already encountered again, but giving them completely different mechanics. Yeah, so you know all that time you spent going through the tutorials and learning how all the things work throughout all of the nights? Well, throw all of that away because it's useless now. Here's the thing. I understand that he was going for a sort of a final showdown kind of deal here, where you have to face off against everything and survive. It's like the last hurrah, right? But you could have avoided this. And this decision is a little confusing. Traditionally, for a situation like this, where you have the final fight, it's a culmination of all the skills you learned up to this point. So having all of these characters here would have been fine if their mechanics stayed roughly the same, because we already know how to deal with them. We just need to do it in a tighter time frame as they're all coming here trying to stop us. You wouldn't have needed to make this fuck-off size of a tutorial if you didn't change everyone's mechanics, meaning we have to relearn everything forcing us to waste so much time trying to learn these new mechanics. We could have just had a small portion talking about where people spawn and then how to deal with the fuckers that we haven't encountered yet. There is quite seriously only one animatronic that does not change, and that is Miniature Baby. Having to relearn everyone's mechanics feels like a waste of our time. It is enough to make players not want to come back, and it is enough to frustrate people. And say it with me, frustration is not the goal of horror. Speaking of frustration, I need to gripe about something. So remember how Bonnie worked in Night 5, where you had to basically click the opposite of what you heard for some fucking reason? Well, in Night 6, you need to do the same thing, but do the thing that actually makes sense. If it's a normal pitch, you pick normal. Low pitch is low. You hear drums with drums. And if the guitar sounds wonky, then glitched guitar. This is frustrating for a different reason. Why the fuck was it not like this in Night 5? This makes way more sense, and it took less effort for you to explain in your tutorial. Fuck me. We'll talk about Night 6 more later. For now, let's talk about the other elephant in the room. The difficulty. So I don't think it's controversial these days to say that Post Shift 2 isn't actually all that hard, or at least not as hard as it's been hyped up to be. The thing that made pre-patch Post Shift 2 hard was this thing called event stacking. So anytime one animatronic spawns in, that's an event, and that is controlled by an RNG script. And what would happen in the pre-patch version is that multiple animatronics would spawn in at the same time and basically kill you. Let's say you go in the construction area and Freddy triggers. That's one event. You have 15 seconds to get to the promotional area. At that exact same time, Foxy triggers. That's another event. And you have a certain amount of time to deal with him. But fuck you, it's not even over. Because now One Eye wants to play hide and seek for some reason, another event, and now you have to find him in a certain amount of time. And for icing on the cake, now Chica spawns. And you have to distract her with a drone before she kills you. This will essentially just kill you no matter what, because if you stop to deal with either one of these, you will not have enough time to deal with the rest of them, and one of them will kill you. That is event stacking. And you can still kind of see it in the patched version in Night 5. The most common thing that happened for me was both Chica and Bonnie triggered at the same time, but there's usually enough time to deal with Chica and then Bonnie, so it's not too much of an issue. And the only thing that event stacking is just a badly configured RNG script. So the only thing you need to do is adjust the script and it should be fine, which is what the patched version of the game is. And that bad RNG would be something that playtesters would find, and I think the two playtesters that Arjack gave this to did find it, because in this bullshit interview, Arjack did say that people said the night was too difficult. I'm willing to bet that this event stacking is what they were talking about. So that really begs the question of why Arjack released the game without adjusting that RNG script. Because they did tell him it was too difficult, so why wasn't anything done? Unfortunately, we will never know. Taking the event stacking out of the equation, just like One Night at Flumpty's, really the only difficulty with this game is figuring out what the mechanics for the different characters are on each night. Once you know what to do with the characters, the game really isn't all that hard. It's just tedious learning the mechanics because Arjack explained, well, kinda everything, as we already discussed. And then from there it's just trial and error, just like any Five Nights at Freddy's game. You just have to learn everything. I didn't have much of an issue really playing the game. The difficulty for me is I can't hear some of the audio. Throughout the game, there are sound cues when the animatronics spawn in. There's a piano when Miniature Freddy pops in, Revenant Freddy will laugh, there's some robotic voices saying different things for the others, and Miniature Baby has a heartbeat. I can't hear the piano or the heartbeat. So in part A, I periodically have to run to the construction and cleaning areas to check for Freddy and the souvenir area for Baby. And in night 5, to deal with Bonnie, you have to listen to what he's playing and select one of these options. I can't hear what he's playing. I was going through this night in a voice call and the people watching could hear what he was playing just fine. I couldn't hear it at all. I have to bring the volume up to a disgusting degree to be able to hear it or just guess. And I can't blame the game for that. That's not the game. That's me. Take care of your hearing, by the way. Don't be around explosions. Now that all of that is out of the way, we can actually talk about the gameplay a little bit, and from this point on, I will be talking about the patched version. Part A is really fucking easy. Just like in OG Five Nights at Freddy's on night 1, nothing actually happens until 2 AM. I couldn't tell if this was also the case for the other nights. I just know that I was able to just stand here and complete drone tasks until about 2 every night without having too much trouble. I think on night 3, I just had a one-night seek happen at like 1. That was it. So considering nothing too crazy happens, we can talk about this. Unlike Garten of Banban, which doesn't have enough mechanics, it goes without saying that this game has a lot. There is a total of 27 characters in the whole game, and 24 of them are active enemies in the game. Still not as many as Ultimate Custom Night, so personally I think this is manageable. But still, 24 is a lot. And that is why playtesting is so important, just like proofreading your story before you publish it. This is to make sure that players are actually able to get through the nights, which is kinda important in my personal opinion.
The playtesters, they gave it like a few attempts, but they didn't really, they found the game too difficult themselves, and they didn't really, I think one of them got to like 5 AM, and he did say that it was quite difficult, and that like, especially like Revenant Freddy, just the whole thing, you have to go all the way to the end of the aisle and deploy,
right,
and it was like a bit too difficult for them to do in that.
And in that situation, I would have suggested listening to them and consider removing some mechanics and see what they say then. Because I do have to ask if we really do need this many characters. I can understand the 5 subjects and the miniatures. There's narrative reasoning for them being here, it makes sense. But we start going off the rails with the Remnant and Revenants. We have multiple versions of the same characters, and there isn't even a clear reason why. I understand the miniatures being here, they're supposed to be more easily controlled, but why are the Revenants here? Why were they created? Or the Remnants? As I asked earlier, what's the difference between them? I would have been fine with Revenant Bonnie, that could have been like a failed prototype or something, but I do truthfully feel that we have entirely too many cooks in the damn kitchen, and we could have removed a few, maybe saved them for another game. I say this because I can't help but think about, unsurprisingly, Amnesia, that had a sort of similar situation. Frictional added a combat system during development. Playtesters played it and weren't really scared throughout the game. Then later down the line, they removed the combat system entirely and the experience actually improved for the players. So I would have gone through this and gotten the feedback from the playtesters and then thought about what mechanics I could have done without, or how I could have changed them to be a bit more intuitive and therefore eliminating the need to list it in the tutorials page. And the event stacking, but we talked about that. So let's talk about these nights. Night 1 is perhaps obviously the softest introduction we could possibly get for exactly what we're in for throughout this game. Unlike most FNAF fan games that start you off with like 1 or 2 characters coming after you, this starts us off with 3. But because of Miniature Freddy's mechanics, you could make an argument that it's technically 4. Miniature Freddy can spawn in either the cleaning area or the construction area. If he spawns in the cleaning area, he'll poke his head out of this vent and you need to look at him to see if he looks the way he's supposed to, if he's starting to shapeshift, which is apparently something the miniature animatronics can do, but Freddy's the only one that does it. Anyway, if he's starting to shapeshift, one of his ears will look different, so you need to look for that. Or, you need to see if he looks like a different animatronic entirely. And that will only happen if enough time has passed. You need to report his conversion state by answering 4 questions in this panel. Easy once you know it, just takes getting to know the mechanic. If he spawns in the construction area, you will have 15 seconds to move down to the promotional area. For some reason, if you don't do it in time, he'll attack you. I guess he really doesn't like looking at you in that particular spot and wants you to get as far away as possible. I don't fucking know. But that's all you have to do for him. Miniature Foxy is the second character we deal with in Night 1, and he's also pretty simple. If he spawns, you will need to look at him and go into the voice constructor and create the prompted sentence and play it in a certain amount of time. You will have plenty of time. The sentences can be randomized, but I've seen one particular one a lot, and that is, 2, please reconfine yourself to simulation. And all of those boxes are on the top. The last one we deal with in Night 1 is Revenant Freddy, and he just kinda chills in the promotional area. When he spawns, you'll hear a laugh, and then you just periodically check on him, and if he isn't there, you look to the left, and if he's standing there, which he will be, then you have to go back to this area and launch a drone. And there you go. You took care of Revenant Freddy. Easy day. Like I said, Night 1 is super easy. None of the animatronics start getting active until 2 AM. But there's a little something I didn't tell you about. All you have to do to beat the night is survive until 6 AM, right? Wrong. You're here to work, motherfucker. So all 3 nights in Part A, you need to complete 3 maintenance drone tasks. All that is just click on this box, click on this box, let it do its thing until it finishes, repeat 2 more times, and that's it. Cool thing about Night 1, if you start the drone right away, and remember to check it again at like 1, you'll already have 2 drone tasks done before the animatronics spawn. You just gotta remember to do it. Alright, Night 2 gets a little harder by introducing 2 more characters on top of the ones from the first night, so you jump from 3 to 5. Now we got Miniature Baby and Revenant Bonnie. Baby will spawn in the souvenirs area, and to get rid of her you need to place some memories and select a good memory, and she'll go away. You're not told which ones are the good memories, that's trial and error. I'll give you a hint. The good memories are the ones that don't involve robots, scientists, or creepy eyes looking at you. Revenant Bonnie will periodically want to play hide and seek, and he can spawn in these 5 places on the map. The number of times you need to find him are randomized between 2 and 5, and you have a set amount of time to find him. Again, you'll have plenty of time. And that's Night 2. Night 3 is the coup de grace, adding Remnant Chica and Remnant Foxy to the roster, raising our enemy count to 7, something that is commonly saved for like Night 5 or 6. But it's okay, they're also easy to deal with. Remnant Chica, you need to come to this part of the construction area after a sound cue plays, and you wait until you see a yellow light flash. Once you do, you come back out to the temporary aisle and launch a drone. Remnant Foxy, like Miniature Freddy, can spawn in 2 different ways. The first is in the same place as Remnant Chica, only he will pop up and look at you. When he does, you do the exact same thing as with Remnant Chica. Come back here, launch a drone. The second way he spawns is actually right here. If he walks up to you, you pull out this controller that's been here the entire fucking time and fuck with the lights a bit until he goes away. No, seriously, when he spawns here, you whip out your controller and press the buttons until he leaves. There's no penalty for selecting a wrong button. And that's it. As I said, you gotta do the drone stuff each night, but overall, pretty easy. You just gotta know the mechanics. Kinda like the actual Five Nights at Freddy's. Once you know the mechanics in that game to the same degree as this game, it becomes ridiculously easy. This is just taken up to a much higher scale with the number of animatronics active, but oddly enough, it's still possible. There are mini games at the end of each night, and if you do them correctly, you unlock some keys. I haven't figured out what the keys do. I'm assuming they're something related to 100% completing the game. These mini games can be bullshit. You're running away from the purple guy collecting kids. If you don't collect them, he kills them. You need to collect them because if you collect all 5, he slows way down. And if you don't collect all of them fast enough, he will basically sprint the length of the map while you are slowing down. And I couldn't finish the one after night 3. I don't like these minigames. And I already talked about the house, and that's the end of part A. So let's go to night 4 in part B. Night 4. I have trouble deciding if this one is the easiest or if night 1 is. I'll explain why. So here you have quite a number of animatronics to deal with. Kind of. This night is fucking weird. You can see in the corner of the screen that there is surrounding activity and virtual discontent. We'll talk about the virtual discontent first. So we are technically dealing with 4 animatronics here, but they're in this virtual environment. Remember when I mentioned Afton made the miniatures to be easily controlled with a virtual environment? Well, this is that environment. If we fuck up enough and don't get to these things in time, an animatronic will spawn in the room and kill us. We're dealing with Freddy, Baby, Ballore, and Balloon Boy. If we see the virtual discontent go up at all, that means one of these fuckers wants something and we need to select the appropriate box that matches what they want. It looks complicated, it's not. Freddy will say he wants pizza, so you shove the pizza slice in his face and call it a day, and you get the idea. If he says he wants a keyboard, give him a fucking keyboard. If he wants a microphone, give him a microphone. Ballora wants a stage, give her a stage. And if you can't tell what some of the things are, the game tells you what they are at the bottom of the screen. As long as you take care of them as soon as you see that number move, they will never be an issue. So now, let's talk about the problems. In front of you is Remnant Puppet, who is contained in this fuck-off pod thing. He'll go through a few stages, but the one you'll pay attention to is when he's in his attack stage. He will say, "I am above," and you'll have to spam click the monitor itself until you get a yes or no option. Press Y on your physical keyboard, then press W to go up the ladder, Q to turn around, and the puppet will go away. Congratulations. That sounds hard. Again, it's not. Next is Miniature Puppet, and they will spawn on this catwalk at some point. When they do, stare at them until they summon Venta Puppet. When that happens, spam click the edge of the screen and they'll go away. Yay! The next ones we'll talk about are Ballora's Miniaturinas. If either one of these numbers rise above 35%, I think, the Miniaturinas will activate, and you will periodically have to check under the virtual station to make sure they aren't there by pressing Q at this view. That number will rise above 35% at some point. That's just unavoidable. But remember to start checking under here every now and then, and they won't bother you. Ever. And the last person we have to talk about is Remnant Balloon Boy, that is behind you. He's probably the easiest to deal with. Just stare at him. If you don't, he'll move. Don't look at him too much, and he'll kill you. So if you hadn't picked up on it, basically the way you'll play this night is just stare at Balloon Boy like he fucking owes you money. Deal with the virtual fuckers when they start complaining. Deal with the puppets when they start complaining. Check the mini fuckers, and go back to staring. You need to survive from 6 AM to 12 PM, because reasons. But that's it. The night really isn't hard. I'm detecting a pattern here. And that brings us to night 5, the night that I really want to talk about the most, because I think this is a case of trying to fix something that wasn't broken, or trying to improve, but ending up over-improving. After playing both versions of this, that being this night, night 5, and the original one in Post Shift 1, I think the system that RJack had in Post Shift 1 was better. We'll go over how to do night 5 and then I'll talk about Post Shift 1. So in night 5 you have 4 animatronics to deal with: Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. Freddy, when you hear him laugh, you need to go to his stage. He'll be playing a certain piece of music and you need to select which one he's playing. This isn't too hard as the tutorial allows you to hear the different pieces of music. Chica, if you hear a robotic voice that isn't telling you a hertz number or to go to Foxy's stage, then you go to Chica's stage and cut the power. That's it. Bonnie, you'll hear this sound, and that means you need to go to Bonnie's stage. I genuinely think Arjack just gave up with Bonnie, because when you get to Bonnie's stage, as I complained about in the tutorial section, you need to select the opposite of what you hear. I can't tell you when you're supposed to pick low pitch because it doesn't tell you. Also, you can place plushies if you come here when he isn't here, and that'll distract him for a little bit. I never bothered with that. As we already discussed, Foxy spawns in two ways. If you hear the announcement telling you a number, you need to go to his stage where you'll see him poke his head out, and then you select the number that you heard in the panel. If the announcement tells you to just go to his stage, you need to go there where he will not poke his head out and look at him on the cameras. If he has no eyes, you need to close out of both panels and select no eyes at the bottom of the screen, and then you can leave. You also have to complete insta orders to complete the night. The game only requires that you do one, and it'll be a good idea to wait until the end of the night to do it, because you'll be stuck in the panel the whole time, which will increase your attention. We'll talk about that in a second. But in the panel you need to establish a web connection, which could possibly take a while, and then pick an order, which could also take a while. So that increases your attention. Throughout the night, your attention will rise if you either move or go in the panel. If it goes up to, I think, 15 or 20%, the animatronics will become increasingly more aggressive and you will likely die. You also have an oxygen meter. That's because Chica's room is filled with toxic gas for some reason, and you need to put on a gas mask in order to keep your oxygen from going down. I just left it off because your oxygen goes back up if you leave. And condition is your gas mask condition. I'll give you a tip. If you don't put it on when dealing with Chica, you don't have to worry about the condition. You got all that? Cool. Now let's talk about post shift 1. So just like night 5, you have an attention and oxygen meter. Freddy's stage is in front of us, Foxy to the left, Chica to the right, and Bonnie behind us. Freddy's mechanics stays the same. You have to guess the song, and in the tutorial you can listen to the different sound bites to know what they are. Chica, you cut the power. Foxy is sort of where we start getting a little different. You select the sine wave that the announcement tells you, just like night 5. However, there is no second way that he attacks. You don't have a camera to see if he has eyes or not. And I would dare say the game flows better without that extra mechanic. That leaves us with Bonnie, and this is probably the biggest change. Rather than listening to the song and selecting the opposite of what you hear, you just select whether it's on the right or left. Which not only makes more sense, but works better because you don't need to know what the original song sounds like to make this selection. You just need to hear where it is. In night 5, this is confusing because you have no clue what the normal song sounds like. You don't even know if the normal song is with or without the fucking drums. So what happened here was Arjack just grabbed post shift 1, changed the look of the map a little bit, update the models, change the animations, and add some mechanics to make it different, which I don't think he should have done. The biggest cases in point are these 3. Freddy is fine because he doesn't change at all, making him simple to deal with and simple to explain, therefore making it easy to understand. So just to drive the point home, let's talk about Chica in this fucking night. You see all this stuff? You can ignore 99% of this, because the only thing you need to do to deal with Chica is cut the fucking power. These are all added mechanics that I would argue did not need to be added. So now let's look at Chica's tutorial in post shift 1. Cut the power. That's fucking crazy. I can understand giving players more options, but when the one thing works just fine, these become unnecessary and clutter the fucking screen. Especially when 2 of them disappear when you get to Chica's stage. This night will be an example of the saying less is more. I think the biggest issue here is Arjack wanted to make it post shift 1, but not, when it honestly would have been better if he just made it post shift 1. Alright, Night 6 is probably going to be the hardest part of the game simply because it is very long and you have to deal with a lot. And there is a good amount of event stacking present that you might not be used to up to this point. You have to deal with damn near all of the animatronics, as well as some environmental events like computer viruses and gas leaks, and as I said before, the mechanics for the animatronics are completely different, except for Baby. You really do kind of have to bring your A game. However, the animatronics are sectioned off in 2-hour segments, so you deal with the first group between 12 and 2, the second group between 2 and 4, group 3 between 4 and 6, and then you just have to survive 200 seconds of Revenant's End and Amalgabot, who are essentially the final bosses of the game. And there's checkpoints. The difficulty, again, is learning all the mechanics. Once you know what to do in response to the different sound cues, you will be fine. Fuck. Alright, speedrunning this shit. Just going down the list. Freddy, go in the panel, press 1, 2, 3, and 4 in any fucking order. Foxy, load a voice thingy and fucking stare at him. There's a lot of fucking staring in this game. Chica, point a plushie at her. Bonnie, do the shit that makes sense. Golden Freddy, turn the volume down. Shadow Freddy, doesn't fucking exist. Fucked up balloon boy, click on his chest if it's open. Miniature puppet, ignore him. Miniature baby, do the shit from night 1. Fucked up puppet, if you see him in camera 5, click a button on the left. Miniature balloon boy, crawl under a table with the child and ignore him until he leaves. Alora, switch the tracks and leave. Revenant Bonnie, throw a drone at him. Revenant Freddy is fucking stupid. Press 4, 3, 2, 1 until you don't need to anymore and then reset the song in one of the cameras. Fuck this guy, he sucks. Remnant Foxy, same as Baby except scare the fuck out of him with a negative memory. Remnant Chica, point a plushie at her as fast as you can. She does not tolerate some slow ass bullshit. And there you go, now we're at the 200 seconds. The actual challenge with this night is going to be with Revenant's End and Amalgabot, who can attack you in 3 different ways to make up for the fact that they're just 2 animatronics in the room. Except they're not, because you also have to periodically make Golden Freddy chill out the entire night by turning his volume down because his music is too fucking loud and it'll damage his hearing. Bitch! Revenant's End will first spawn in the elevator. Basically, keep holding the door shut until he's standing up. As if that would fucking do anything. I don't understand. And now this is where the tutorial kinda lies to you. Again, once Revenant's End is standing in the elevator, and he enters the room, he will not go back to the elevator. So he'll either appear on the stage with Golden Freddy or just show up at the vent view. If he shows up at the vent view, you need to put on a mask in a specific order. Top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. If he shows up on Golden Freddy's stage, this is where things get crazy. You hop over to the vent view and play a voice to make him come over to you in the vent view, and then you do the exact same thing you would do as if he was just at the vent view, put on the fucking mask. So essentially, one way to deal with him is simple, the other way to deal with him is simple with 1 extra step. Easy day. And lastly, Amalgabot. If he's at the communications post, scare the fuck out of him with a Bonnie mask. If he's at the table, you need to stop the music that he's playing in one of the cameras by spam clicking the button. And if he's under the table, you need to get under there and check cams 1, 2, and 4 for an audio protocol. Again, I wouldn't say it's necessarily hard. It's just very time consuming because you're going to be spending a lot of time going through trial and error to get accustomed to the mechanics. Also, fuck those last 2. Oh, there's also this at the top left-hand corner, which may as well not even exist. You have the first 3, which are from night 5, which you can ignore. Attention is, again, when you either move or go in the panel, which you won't do often enough for it to be a problem. Oxygen will go down if there's a gas leak, just like night 5. Oh yeah, there's random gas leaks in night 5. That's another reason for the gas mask. Condition is the condition of your gas mask, which shouldn't get damaged in this night. Then you have power, rad exposure, and health. Your power will gradually drain as the night progresses, but if you upload files to the computer on the left and fix the periodic virus on the panel to the right, as you should be doing, then power will never be an issue and you can ignore it. because doing both of these tasks brings your power back up a significant amount, if not to 100%. Which is probably why I didn't even know Fredmare was a thing in this night. He's like Freddy if the power goes out in FNAF. He only shows up if you run out of power, which arguably is something that you will never see because you will never run out of power before one of the other animatronics kills you. Anyway, power will drain whether you're in the panel or not, so don't worry about it. Rat exposure? I've never seen this go above 0%. Ever. So, why is this here? Health, this will go down if you ignore the miniature puppet in the camera and he comes and ignores your personal space for a few seconds. But then it goes back up to 100%. So, what I'm saying is you can just ignore miniature puppet and essentially nothing will happen to you. So I'm serious when I say it. Just ignore this part of the screen and you'll be fine. If knowing my personal opinions about this night makes you feel any better for some reason, I don't like this night. I don't think it makes any sense. Why would you change everyone's mechanics right at the end? It doesn't make sense. I might have an example of a final night that does make sense in an upcoming video. You might want to keep an eye out for that. Now the last couple things I want to talk about. The animations that play as you transition from room to room, while they didn't really bother me, my buddy Z on the other hand, who gets motion sickness, did not have very pleasant things to say when he first saw this game.
I believe in you. But I might get motion sick with this camera action. I might have to step away. This is crazy movement. Why couldn't it be normal? It's a very fine-tuned game by the graphics, but why are the cameras shaking so much, looking around like it's the first time you enter a building?
Pretty sure I heard something. That's the best way to show movement, you know?
If you say so. Go back to Zoocosis, the unneeded animations. Very unneeded animations.
What do you mean?
This is like those new horror movies that have shaky cam everywhere. I don't want to get motion sick watching your movie. I'm shaking the camera around like crazy. It's literally a movie, but this is a game. Oh my gosh.
What do you mean?
You're gonna make me sick, Bowie.
No. No.
I might actually get motion sick if you keep turning around like this.
I'm not meaning to.
I know you're not, but this camera is actually getting to me.
And probably the worst offender to this will be Night 6. I mean, good fucking god, man. There are secrets in the game, as I said, and getting them is the road to 100%ing this game. I really wasn't interested in doing that. From my perspective, Arjak only made one mistake. The RNG script was written incorrectly, which caused that event stacking. And he was more than likely told about it and just released it anyway. It was a simple mistake, and one that he corrected by taking the game down and releasing the patched version. No harm done. From there, everything that I have seen is stuff that I would expect from any indie developer. There's just little things that can be tweaked after getting feedback from the larger player base. Things like the tutorial not mentioning things. Bonnie's mechanic not making much sense in Night 5. Things like that are all things that you can expect to see in indie games. And those are all things that can be tweaked with more updated versions. Players get that initial patched version fixing a majority of the difficulty that was not intended. They play through, say, hey Arjak, play through the game, I think you can do this, this, and this, and that would make it better, and point out some things that maybe he and the playtesters didn't notice. Then he goes through, decides which things are supposed to be the way they are and which things he should adjust so the players have a better experience. And then he releases version 1.0.3 or 4 or whatever, and that cycle continues from there. This should have just been a learning experience on why you don't just release the game when playtesters tell you about some problems they had. But unfortunately, this experience seems to have caused Arjack to leave game development altogether, among other things. I tried reaching out to him on DeviantArt but didn't get a response. I would have reached out on Twitter, but I need to give Twitter money in order to do that, and fuck that. The last post from him was on January 25th announcing his birthday, and his most recent activity on his YouTube page was this song he posted a few weeks ago. It's pretty fire. You should leave a like on his video. And there has been no activity on the PostShift2 GameJolt page, and he hasn't made anything since. Arjack, I don't know if you're watching this, but if you are and you made it this far, I and so many others understand not coming back to game development. But I will always hope that you do. That you find that spark again. Because you have an incredible amount of talent. I can't help but wonder what you would have been able to do by now if you had stuck with it. Because despite the flaws in it, this game is, in no small way, fascinating. The models and environments that were made are insane. Incredibly detailed. You're able to come up with mechanics that does keep the gameplay fresh. The issue was its execution, and that is something that can be worked on. No harm done. Story? Again, you had an idea, an original idea, and it's clear that you had a direction with it. You knew where you wanted it to go. The issues with it, again, are just things that take time to learn. Animations are things that get better with time. Story writing are things that get better with time. Despite the issues and flaws that I have seen, I don't think this is a bad game. In fact, I'm willing to say that this is one of the best indie games that I have seen in a long time. I think having you not be a part of the horror genre would be an incredible waste of talent. But I understand. I want to end on a little interesting tidbit that I learned about. So if returning viewers remember, I talk about amnesia and frictional games quite a bit in these videos, and I mentioned, I think in this one, that frictional games built their own game engine, and that they were basically an indie studio around that time. Well, Bowie, why don't people like Arjack just do that instead of using engines like ClickTeam or GameMaker or Unity or Unreal? Well, let's hear the answer from a developer.
Bruh, why don't startup studios just make their own game engine? Like, bro, stop being lazy. Wow. Okay, well, my teams have made plenty of engines, and they are hard. They take years and years, especially for nowadays. You need to take an old engine and rework it, but making an engine from scratch in today's market is going to take you years and millions of dollars, and you'll still get it wrong.
Has absolutely nothing to do with anything we just talked about. I just thought this was interesting, and there is no logical way for me to go from what I was talking about to talking about that, so here we are. In conclusion today, I don't think PostShift2 is a bad game. Arjack clearly had an idea and a direction. The model designs and the environments are awesome. The quality of the animations are really decent despite some shaky movements in some places. I think he had an original idea, original mechanics. The music is great, and I wish he would come back and do more. And yeah, that's all I got. See ya.